On the day of the hostile takeover, my husband took the entire sales team to a hotel to celebrate his first love's birthday. In my past life, I dragged him back to the company, causing his first love to fall into a coma after getting drunk. He cared for her for 3 years. Then poisoned me at my celebration banquet. You were jealous of her, and you stole her ideas. When I opened my eyes again, the board's calls were flooding in. A $300 million acquisition deal. Get your husband back here now. Swirling my glass of red wine, I smiled. Call him. Better call an ambulance. This time, I live-streamed his first love's affair, watching him lose his mind and push her down the stairs. As the police took him away, I flashed the patent certificate, my idea. The draft she stole is still in the safe. The air in the boardroom was thick and heavy, like congealed grease pressing down on everyone's lungs. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city's neon lights flickered to life, painting the cold, bustling silhouette of the steel jungle. Inside, the long conference table was flanked by faces usually marked by authority or shrewdness, now all taut under the eerie blue glow of the screens. Every tiny fluctuation in the numbers on those screens tugged at everyone's nerves, sending waves of silent agony. At the center of the storm was that glaring codename, Vulture Fund. The $300 million offer. Like a red-hot branding iron, it seared into the nameplate of Bright Light Tech, sizzling with the stench of humiliation. Where is Director Liu? Where's his sales team? Where the hell have they all gone? Chairman Zhao Yuan slammed his hand on the table, the expensive rosewood surface groaning under the force. His white hair seemed to stand on end, his bloodshot eyes locked onto me sitting in the corner, burning with fury. Shen Ci, you're his wife. Right now, call him, get him and his team back here within 10 minutes. Director Wang Yu from the Key Accounts Department has been calling my phone non-stop, without the core sales data and the backing of his loyal client network. How do we negotiate with the Vulture? How do we stabilize the stock price? Each word he roared was like a poisoned ice pick, driving deep into my temples. Bzzzzz. A violent ringing exploded in my ears, drowning out Zhao Yuan's subsequent rage. The luxurious conference room before me began to warp, dissolve, and fade like a cheap painting drenched in solvent. In its place emerged another image crystal clear and suffocatingly vivid, the deafening music of the victory celebration. Crystal chandeliers refracting a hazy glow. Champagne towers cascading with golden bubbles. The crowd surrounds me, waves of applause and flattery surging toward me. A decade of hard work, and the celestial dome system emerges like a bolt from the blue. The company's market value skyrocketing tenfold, my name is splashed across financial headlines, etched onto the giant screens of Times Square. Overwhelming joy and exhaustion intertwine, nearly drowning me. Then, a warm hand me husband Liu Heng's hand offers me a glass of champagne. On his face is a smile I've never seen before, almost saintly, yet his eyes are pools of lifeless, icy stillness. Ah, Ci, you've worked hard. Have a drink. Unprepared. I tilt my head back and drain the glass. The moment the liquid slides down my throat, the world begins to spin violently. Consciousness is brutally torn apart and stripped away by an invisible force. The last remnants of awareness are the cold floor dragging beneath me, the suffocating stench of disinfectant mingled with decay, and a stark, lifeless overhead light. Just because you were jealous of my first love, you deliberately blew things out of proportion and called me away, leaving her unattended until she fell and became a vegetable. Liu Heng's voice, icy, venomous, and filled with bone-deep hatred, seemed to come from a distant hell, each syllable dripping with poison. Moreover, this product was stolen from her idea. Why is everyone praising you? Die with her. Before my vision completely darkened, I vaguely saw the figure on the adjacent hospital bed by Wei, who had lain there for 3 years, her false vital signs maintained by machines. Liu Heng's first love. He had guarded her for 3 years, 3 years of endless tears. So, all those tears were not remorse. But a poisonous river formed by his overwhelming hatred for me and this world. Shenxi, are you deaf? Call someone. Zhao Yuan's voice, nearly a roar, pierced through the ringing in my ears again, yanking me back from that icy recollection of death. At the far end of the conference table, on the giant display screen, the stock price line of Mingguang Technology was plummeting like a severed viper, writhing downward in a frantic struggle, leaving behind a shocking trail of green. Each fluctuation represented millions of dollars vanishing, bringing the company one step closer to being completely torn apart by the vultures. In my previous life, it was this moment. Overwhelming panic and responsibility crushed me like a boulder dot. I grabbed the car keys, charging out of the meeting room like an enraged bull, stomping on the accelerator, weaving recklessly through the evening rush hour traffic, cursing and honking, driving at a near-suicidal speed to that opulent 5-star hotel. I burst into the private room, dragging Lu Heng's wrist roughly amidst a sea of shock, embarrassment, and even anger, ignoring the sudden flush of shame and fury on his well-dressed face. I screamed, "The company is finished, come back with me," then, practically dragging the equally panicked sales team into the car, I sped back to the company at breakneck speed. That night, we held on to our most critical client resources, stabilized our precarious defense, and temporarily repelled the vulture's first attack. In the brightly lit office, as exhausted cheers erupted, I collapsed into my chair, feeling only the numb exhaustion of having survived a near-death experience. Then my phone rang. It was a cold notification from the hospital. By way, the woman I had forgotten in the hotel suite had fallen down the third-floor emergency staircase while drunk and alone, hitting the back of her head and immediately falling into a coma. Diagnosis: severe brain injury, vegetative state. The chill I felt at that moment was even worse than the one I experienced at the time of my death in my previous life. It heralded the beginning of a 3-year nightmare, foreshadowing the deepening hatred in Lu Heng's eyes, hatred so consuming it would eventually lead to that sweet cup of poisoned wine at the celebration banquet. Shenxi, Zhao Yuan's voice was already hoarse, carrying the tone of a final ultimatum. This is an order. Contact Lu Heng immediately, all eyes burning with anxiety, anger, pleading, and malicious glee focused on me like spotlights. I slowly, deeply inhaled, my lungs filled with the thick, foul air of this luxurious conference room, a mixture of expensive cigars and the sweat of anxiety. The scent of disinfectant and decay from my previous life's deathbed, that bone-deep cold hatred, still lingered in my nasal passages as if it had never left. When I opened my eyes again, the storm of shock and turmoil in my gaze had been replaced by a frozen, lifeless tundra. I raised my head to meet Zhao Yuan's eyes, which seemed almost ablaze with fury, and the corner of my mouth twitched upward ever so slowly. It wasn't a smile, more like a cold crack splitting across my face. Make a phone call. My voice wasn't loud, yet it cut clearly through the stifled murmurs in the meeting room, carrying an eerie, unsettling calm. Chairman, do you really think calling him now would serve any purpose? Zhao Yuan froze, clearly unprepared for my reaction, his anger flaring even hotter. What the hell do you mean? What do you mean, no purpose? He's the marketing director, his team holds the key client resources. Without them, what leverage do we have to negotiate with the vulture? How do we placate Wang Yu? Key client resources, I repeated softly, my fingertips tapping absently against the cold mahogany tabletop, producing a monotonous talk like the ticking of a countdown clock. Perhaps. But have you considered, at this critical moment, why Lu Heng would take the entire core sales team and vanish only to reappear together at the Cloud Summit banquet hall on the top floor of the Imperial Hotel? I paused, my gaze sweeping over the faces filled with shock and doubt, before finally settling back on Zhao Yuan. My voice was laced with icy shards. Today is the birthday of his first love, by way. The birthday of a woman who has absolutely no connection to our bright light technologies. Boom. The meeting room erupted instantly. What, a birthday? At a time like this, Director Lu has gone mad. By way, The one in venture capital? No wonder. I was wondering why I couldn't get in touch with Xiao Zhang and the others. Shock, disbelief, rage. And the shame of being deceived rapidly spread and intertwined across the faces of shareholders and executives. Zhao Yuan's face turned from red to pale, then from pale to ashen, his lips trembling as his shaking hand pointed at me. You're lying. Lu Heng. How could he possibly? Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you can easily send someone to check at the cloud top of the imperial palace. I calmly cut him off, leaning back into the spacious chair as if shedding a 1,000-pound burden. Or perhaps completely detaching from this oncoming whirlpool of collapse. I even leisurely picked up the untouched bottle of Evian mineral water on the table, unscrewed the cap, and took a sip. The icy liquid slid down my throat, bringing with it a nearly cruel clarity. Call him back. I set down the water bottle, looking at Zhao Yuan with not a ripple in my eyes, only a pool of cold, stagnant water. I think it'd be better to call an ambulance directly. Save us the trouble of scrambling around later. Shen Ci, you bastard, Zhao Yuan completely lost control. Grabbing a folder from the table and hurling it at me. The folder brushed past my shoulder, papers scattering everywhere. This is outrageous, utterly outrageous. His chest heaved violently like a broken bellows. Security, get this. Chairman, Chen Chuan, the CFO who had been silently observing next to Zhao Yuan, suddenly spoke up. His voice was quiet yet carried an undeniable steadiness. Adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses, his hawk-like gaze behind the lenses locked onto me for a deep moment before turning to the furious Zhao Yuan. Director Shen's words, though harsh, may not be entirely untrue. Our top priority now is to clarify the specifics of Director Lu's situation and how we should respond to Vulture's next move. Internal chaos will only give our enemies a reason to laugh. As a company veteran with high prestige, Chen Chuan's words acted like a bucket of cold water, temporarily dousing part of Zhao Yuan's rage. The old chairman, panting heavily, slumped back into his seat, his hollow eyes fixed on the screen where the green death line continued its slow descent. He murmured. Then, what do you suggest we do? Without sales data, without client support. What do we have to negotiate with? The meeting room plunged into dead silence once more, broken only by heavy breathing and the low hum of computer servers. Despair, thick as ink, began seeping soundlessly into every corner again. Just as the suffocating silence was about to reach its peak, my personal phone on the table vibrated abruptly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The screen lit up and the caller ID name flashed painfully bright. Lu Heng. All eyes instantly focused on that small screen, then collectively turned toward me, filled with a mix of complex emotions. I stared impassively at the name flashing for a few seconds, then, under everyone's gaze, extended my index finger and calmly, resolutely swiped toward the red decline icon. The movements were crisp and decisive, without a hint of hesitation. Zhao Yuan's barely suppressed anger flared up again as he pointed at me. Too furious to speak. The phone stayed silent for less than 3 seconds. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Lu Heng's name lit up stubbornly again, carrying a kind of madness that refused to give up until the goal was achieved. I still didn't answer. My fingertip hovered over the screen for a moment. And this time, I tapped on another icon, a very niche but powerful remote monitoring app. In my previous life, driven by some indescribable possessiveness and unease, had installed a tiny, well-hidden camera in Bai Wei's flashy Porsche sports car. This secret was something even Lu Heng didn't know about. Like a shadowy voyeur, it faithfully recorded everything that happened inside the car, yet I had never actually checked those recordings. Until death came, and this secret was buried along with it. Now, it had become the first key to my revenge. The app interface connected instantly. A prompt box popped up in the center of the screen, asking for a password. My fingers flew across the screen as I entered a string of complex characters. Shen Xiai, what the hell are you doing? Zhao Yuan roared, unable to contain his anger. I ignored him, merely tilting my phone screen slightly to ensure the camera could capture the scene. Then, the moment the app successfully logged in, I pressed that crucial button, real-time monitoring. The phone screen suddenly became crystal clear. What first came into view was a pair of slender legs encased in expensive suit trousers, clad in Lu Heng's favorite custom-made leather shoes, crossed in an extremely suggestive manner on the reclined passenger seat. The camera panned slightly upward, dark leather seatback. And then, further up, the screen suddenly froze on the car's rearview mirror. In the mirror, two figures entangled in the back seat were clearly reflected. A man with meticulously styled black hair was sprawled messily across the dark leather seat. My husband, Lu Heng. His expensive Armani coat was nowhere to be seen, and several buttons of his tailored shirt had been undone, revealing his muscular chest and strong collarbones. His cheeks were flushed, his gaze dazed, carrying a seductive, indulgent look as he tightly embraced the woman pressing down on him around the waist, and that woman, wearing a flashy, bright purple velvet dress with a low-cut neckline, revealing a delicate crystal necklace around her neck, was none other than tonight's birthday girl. By way, she was burying her face in Lu Heng's neck, greedily biting and sucking, while one hand recklessly reached into the open hem of his shirt. The high-definition image was so clear that even Lu Heng's slightly trembling eyelashes as he panted in ecstasy, and the prominent blue veins pulsing on Bai Wei's neck from arousal, were visible in every detail. Inside the cramped carriage, a nauseating, sticky atmosphere of lust hung thick in the air. Boom! The entire conference room was as if hit by a massive bomb. Silence, absolute silence, even the sound of breathing vanished. Time seemed to freeze. The air was instantly sucked dry, turning into a hard, icy solid capable of freezing one's very soul. Every face, Zhao Yuan, Chen Chuan, all the other shareholders and executives appeared as if struck by a petrification spell, their eyes wide to the point of bursting from their sockets. Mouths unconsciously agape, forming a comical yet horrifying O shape. The vivid, indecent images on the screen, like a lightning bolt carrying the fires of hell, tore through all pretense, dignity, and the last shred of hope. Lu Heng, the marketing director, whom they had pinned their hopes on and who controlled the core sales lifeline of the company, his so-called urgent matter turned out to be this passionate, reckless spectacle taking place in the parking lot of a five-star hotel. In the back seat of his first love's luxury car during the company's most critical moment of survival, Zhao Yuan's face instantly lost all color, turning as pale as if coated with cheap chalk. He stared fixedly at the nauseating, swaying footage on my phone screen, his body jerking violently. If not for his hands gripping the table tightly, he would have collapsed to the floor. His mouth hung open, emitting a choked huh sound like a dying fish, yet not a single word could escape. In his eyes, there was no longer anger, but only the vast emptiness and bewilderment of a shattered faith. The other shareholders' expressions were even more dramatic. Shock, disbelief, furious indignation at being deceived, and thick, suffocating contempt and disgust flashed across their faces like a rapid succession of images. Some turned their heads sharply away, as if even a glance would be a stain. Others stared intently at the screen, their facial muscles contorted, fists clenched so tightly they creaked. The silence lasted only a few brief seconds. Shameless, despicable, a gray-haired senior shareholder suddenly slammed the table and stood up, trembling with rage, his fingers shaking as he pointed at the screen. I, Zhao, have weathered the storms of the business world for decades, and I've never seen such a shameless, reckless scoundrel who disregards the bigger picture. The life and death of the company mean less to him than some floozy's birthday party, less than a quick romp in a car. Another hot-tempered vice president also rose to his feet, veins bulging on his forehead, his voice cracking with fury. Lu Heng, how dare he? What does he take us all for? What does he take Mingguang for? His stepping stone for an affair? Call the police, call them now. Arrest them. Someone roared. Arrest my ass, haven't we been humiliated enough? Chen Chuan snapped sharply, his face livid but his gaze razor-sharp as he suddenly turned to me. Director Shen, turn it off, now, his voice carried an unquestionable authority, instantly overpowering the clamor in the room. I met his sharp gaze, my face still devoid of any expression. My eyes as calm as a frozen lake. With a light tap of my fingertip on the screen, the surveillance footage vanished instantly. The conference room was left with only the sound of heavy, suppressed breaths and the faint rustling of papers being unconsciously crumpled. The atmosphere as oppressive as the depths of the ocean before a storm. Shen Ci. Zhao Yuan finally found his voice, hoarse and dry, like sandpaper scraping against rotten wood. He looked at me, his gaze incredibly complex: residual shock, the pain of betrayal, deep exhaustion. And a faint, almost imperceptible plea, you. When did you plant this? Does it matter? I asked coldly, flipping my phone screen down onto the table with a soft click, as if sealing the coffin on this unbearable farce. What matters is, do you still think calling him back will solve anything? Or are you actually expecting him to calm down our big client, Wang Yu, in the state he was just in fighting, in someone else's car? My words were like poisoned ice picks, precisely piercing the freshly torn wounds of everyone present. Zhao Yuan's body swayed again, the last trace of color draining from his face, leaving only the ashen despair of a man who had lost everything. He slumped back into his chair, hands clutching his face in pain, shoulders trembling slightly. The conference room was utterly silent, save for the relentless, downward-sloping stock price line, silently mocking them all. At that very moment, the meeting room door was flung open. Secretary Yang Xia's face turned pale, and she rushed in breathlessly, clutching a tablet computer tightly in her hand, her voice trembling with tears. Director, Chairman, General Manager Wang, the General Manager of the major clients department, he's lost his temper. He started a video conference. He said he wants to connect immediately. Otherwise he'll terminate all cooperation and switch to Vulture. What? Zhao Yuan jerked his head up, his bloodshot eyes filled with nothing but terror. Yang Xia fumbled with the conference system. On the massive main screen, a video call window suddenly popped up. A middle-aged man dressed in an elegant Tang suit appeared at the center of the frame, his expression stern, his gaze as sharp as an eagle's. It was none other than Wang Yu, Chairman Wang, our company's most vital client. Behind him was a brightly lit, highly technological office, with the massive Zhenshan Group logo on the background wall exuding a heavy sense of authority. At this moment, the business magnate's face showed no trace of his usual polite smile, only a dark, stormy seriousness. Chairman Zhao, Wang Yu's voice came through the speakers, not loud, but carrying the weight of 1,000 pounds, suffocating the entire conference room. A 3 billion acquisition deal has crushed your company's stock price and sent panic through your ranks. I understand that. But where are the core sales data supports and the 3-month exclusivity cooperation guarantee plan you promised to deliver by 8 p.m. tonight? Where is Director Liu? Where is his team? I've made over a dozen calls, all switched off. Is this how Mingguang Technology treats its strategic partners? His gaze swept across the screen like an icy searchlight, scrutinizing each visibly uncomfortable Mingguang executive. Or has your internal chaos reached such a level that you've thrown even the most basic contractual principles to the dogs? If that's the case, perhaps the terms offered by Vulture deserve more serious consideration from me. Mr. Wang, please calm down. Zhao Yuan practically threw himself in front of the camera, hunched over, forcing a smile on his face that looked even worse than crying, stammering out an explanation. Misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. Director Liu. He had an urgent matter come up suddenly. We're contacting him right now. The proposal and data will be ready soon. Please give us just a little more time. Just a little. Urgent matter. Wang Yu's lips curled into a cold, undisguised sneer. More urgent than stabilizing the company's lifeline, more urgent than fulfilling promises to our biggest client. Chairman Zhao, we're all seasoned foxes. Why play these games? let me ask one last time, where is Lu Heng and what is he doing? If he can't give me a reasonable explanation, or if your company fails to provide a convincing answer tonight. He deliberately paused, his cold gaze sweeping over Zhao Yuan, who had turned pale. Then our cooperation ends here. Tomorrow morning, I'll personally go have morning tea with the head of the Vulture Fund. You'd better take care of yourselves. The video window darkened. Zhao Yuan stood motionless, like a clay or wooden statue stripped of its soul. The conference room was utterly silent, despair like icy water flooding over everyone. Wang Yu's final words, "Take care of yourself," echoed in each person's heart like a death knell. It's over. All over. A young vice president, unable to bear the pressure any longer, covered his face and began to sob quietly. Just at this moment of utter despair, when all hope seemed lost, I slowly rose from my seat. The sound of high heels striking the polished marble floor clear, steady, and carrying an oddly rhythmic cadence instantly drew all the desperate, teetering gazes in the room. Chairman, my voice was not loud. Yet it cut through the thick despair in the conference room like a sharp dagger, since Mr. Wang wants an explanation, wants data, wants a solution. I paused, my calm gaze sweeping over the stunned, bewildered faces still clinging to their last instinctive shreds of doubt. Then I will provide them. You? Zhao Yuan whirled around abruptly, his bloodshot eyes fixed on me like a drowning man clutching at the last straw, or like someone staring at a stranger who had suddenly appeared spouting nonsense. Shen CI, technological RD is your domain. Sales data. Client relations, partnership proposals. How could you possibly? How could I possibly know? I gave a faint, coldly sharp smile. Perhaps I've always known. It's just that before, someone was standing in front, and I couldn't be bothered to reach out. Without another glance at him, I strode straight to the main computer in the conference room. Under the incredulous gazes of everyone present, I sat down and began typing rapidly on the keyboard without consulting any materials, without the slightest hesitation. As fluidly as if I had rehearsed it 1,000 times. On the screen, a brand new file opened. The title was strikingly bold, SkyVault System Core Sales Data Support and Deep Exclusive Cooperation Assurance Plan for Zhenshan Group V1. 0. This. Chen Chuan was the first to step forward. When he saw the content rapidly generated on the screen, his pupils behind the gold-rimmed glasses suddenly contracted, the precision of the data dimensions listed, the sharpness of the future market trend analysis. The ruthless effectiveness of the solutions targeting Zhenshan Group's pain points, and the astonishing boldness and clever self-interest protection embedded in the exclusivity guarantee clauses, each element far surpassed the routine, even somewhat perfunctory report submitted by Lu Heng's team. This was no last-minute scramble, it was clearly a thunderous strike, meticulously planned and long in the making. Data. These core sales data, even Director Lu doesn't have full access to the latest updates. A sales vice director exclaimed in shock. I didn't respond. My fingers dancing across the keyboard at an even faster pace. Clear charts, incisive analyses, and bold yet enticing partnership proposals flowed effortlessly onto the screen like floating clouds and running water. I even accessed several back-end databases restricted to the highest clearance levels, extracting the latest, most authentic, and most shocking market feedback data. Integrating it directly into the proposal, Tianqiong. Zhao Yuan murmured the name from the proposal's title as if struck by lightning, suddenly looking up with an expression of disbelief flashing in his eyes. Shen CI, this is that secret project you've been leading. That legendary, disruptive AI algorithm integration system. It's already operational, and you've incorporated it into the proposal for Wang Yu. Correct. I didn't look up, my voice calm and unruffled. The core of Tianqiong lies in its ability to analyze vast, multidimensional, dynamic market data in real time, make precise predictions, and self-optimize through iteration. It doesn't just provide the most authentic sales data support, it can also tailor the optimal market entry strategy, risk mitigation model, and profit maximization plan for partners like President Wang. Exclusive cooperation? No, this will be a symbiotic strategic alliance. I pressed the final enter key, and a meticulously structured, logically coherent, data-rich proposal brimming with foresight and compelling persuasion appeared in its entirety on the massive main screen. This is simply. Chen Chuan's voice trembled slightly, a mix of excitement, awe, and the wild joy of a last-minute salvation, a stroke of genius, Director Shen. No. President Shen, this proposal is enough to make President Wang change his mind. It might even become our strongest trump card against Vulture. The atmosphere in the meeting room instantly skyrocketed from an ice cellar to the boiling point. Everyone was stunned by the flawless proposal on the screen. What flowed there wasn't just data and text, it was the hope of survival, the clarion call for a comeback victory. Hurry, send it to President Wang now. Zhao Yuan's voice cracked with excitement, shedding all traces of his earlier despair. He looked as if he had instantly regained 10 years of youth. I nodded, lightly tapping to encrypt and send the proposal. At the same time, I picked up my phone and dialed Wang Yu's private number I had obtained in my previous life during an extremely rare technical exchange, when the big shot had privately given it to me. Impressed by my skills. In my past life, I had never used it. In this life, it became the key. The call connected almost instantly. President Wang, have you received the proposal? My voice was steady and firm, exuding a confidence that commanded the situation. I'm Shen Ci, Director of Technology RD at Mingguang Tech. The core data model and predictive algorithm in this proposal are based on our secretly developed Celestial Dome system, which we've been working on for 3 years. I believe it will address all your concerns and demonstrate Mingguang's utmost sincerity in collaborating with Zhenshan Group to shape the future. As for Director Liu, I deliberately paused, injecting a measured tone of coldness and regret into my voice. Unfortunately, due to his serious personal misconduct, he is temporarily unable to represent Mingguang Tech. All his work permissions have been fully transferred to me, effective immediately. I will promptly inform you of the internal investigation and subsequent disciplinary actions. Mingguang's reputation and commitments will not be tarnished by the actions of any individual. Now, please review the proposal. I, representing Mingguang, await your feedback online. On the other end of the line, there was a prolonged silence. The meeting room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop, with everyone holding their breath, their hearts in their throats. A few seconds later, Wang Yu's deep voice finally came through, betraying neither joy nor anger, yet with a hint less of the previous chill. The proposal, I've seen it. Director Shen, you've hidden your cards well. Celestial Dome. Quite intriguing. The data. Solid. Give me 10 minutes. The call ended. 10 minutes, as long as a century. No one in the meeting room spoke, moved, or even dared to breathe loudly. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the avatar representing Wang Yu on the main screen, occasionally darting glances at me. Zhao Yuan clasped his hands in front of his nose, continuously murmuring prayers. Chen Chuan, meanwhile, stared intently at the stock price chart on the screen. Time ticked by, minute by minute. Finally, Wang Yu's avatar lit up again. A video call request popped up. Zhao Yuan practically lunged to answer the call. On the screen, Wang Yu's figure reappeared. This time, the frost on his face seemed to have thawed slightly. His gaze remained sharp, but now carried a hint of scrutiny and an almost imperceptible trace of admiration. Director Shen, he addressed me directly, completely ignoring Zhao Yuan, who was tense enough to suffocate. I've reviewed the proposal. The data backing is solid. The exclusivity guarantee is tough. Especially the predictive capabilities and customized solutions demonstrated by the Sky Dome system. He gave a slight nod. It exceeded my expectations. He paused, his eyes scanning the screen. Lu Heng's incident was a disgrace for you. But I, Wang Yu, look at a company's strength and future. Sky Dome showed me strength. Your performance tonight, Shen Ci, showed me that Mingguang still has a future. I agree in principle to that exclusivity deep cooperation agreement. Details will be discussed tomorrow morning at 9:00 in my office at the Zhenshan Group headquarters. I hope that by then, the person sitting across from me will be you. Shen Ci. The screen darkened once again. Phew. A massive, relieved exhale erupted simultaneously in the conference room, immediately followed by unrestrained, trembling cheers and applause. It's done, we did it, President Wang agreed. We're saved, Director Shen, no. President Shen, you're the savior of Mingguang. Zhao Yuan was so moved that tears streamed down his aged face. He rushed over and gripped my shoulders tightly, stammering incoherently, ACI, well done, I knew it, I knew you could do it, starting today. You're the company's executive vice president, fully responsible for the Celestial Dome project and all collaborations with Zhenshan Group, Lu Heng. That bastard Lu Heng. He. The immense joy and the exhilaration of surviving a near disaster sent this elderly man through an emotional roller coaster from hell to heaven in an instant. Completely losing control. His reference to Lu Heng had turned into the most direct curse. I calmly pulled my shoulder away, ignoring his agitation, and picked up the phone resting on the table. The screen was still on the interface of the surveillance app. I tapped a function option and selected Sync Stream to Link Device. Then, I calmly turned my phone screen toward the cloud-top banquet hall of the Dihao Hotel. Dihao Hotel. Cloud-top banquet hall. This is a completely different world. Crystal chandeliers refract a hazy, dreamlike light, while outside the vast floor-to-ceiling windows lies a dazzling city night view. The air is filled with the mingled scents of expensive champagne, delicate pastries, and fine perfumes. Soft jazz music flows, and the room is alive with the rustle of elegant attire and the clinking of glasses. Tonight's star, Bai Wei, was dressed in a flamboyant bright purple velvet dress, the neckline still open, revealing that delicate crystal necklace. Holding a wine glass, she was surrounded at the center by a crowd of men and women, primarily from the Mingguang sales team. Her face glowing with unconcealed pride and unrestrained excitement. She was enthusiastically boasting about some genius idea that was about to revolutionize the industry, drawing a mix of genuine and feigned flattery from those around her. Bai Jie's vision is simply unmatched. If this project succeeds, it's definitely going to be a unicorn. Yeah, sticking with Bai Jie is always the right move. Happy birthday, Bai Jie. Don't forget to give us a leg up in the future. Lu Heng stood beside Bai Wei, wearing a warm and appropriate smile on his face. But his gaze occasionally drifted toward the entrance, carrying a hint of barely noticeable anxiety and distraction. Shen Ci hadn't answered the phone. The board meeting. The vulture. One thought after another gnawed at his mind like venomous snakes. Yet Bai Wei's arm rested on his waist, intentionally or not. The suggestive warmth and pressure forcing him to suppress his unease and maintain the facade of composure. Ah Heng, what's wrong? You seem distracted. Bai Wei leaned close to his ear, her alcohol-laced breath brushing against his neck. Her lowered voice dripping with ambiguity and a hint of dominance. Still worrying about that mess at the company? Don't worry, with me here, the sky won't fall. Once the vulture cleans up Mingguang's mess, I'll arrange a better position for you. Tonight. Just relax, Her hand subtly traced a suggestive caress along the small of his back. Lu Heng stiffened slightly, a faint blush rising to his cheeks, mingling with embarrassment and a twisted sense of satisfaction at being needed. He was just about to speak. Suddenly, the soft background music in the banquet hall suddenly stopped. Immediately after, the huge LCD screens hanging on the walls around the banquet hall, as well as the large LED screen in the center used for playing birthday greetings, lit up unexpectedly. The images displayed on the screens plunged the entire noisy and luxurious banquet hall into a deathly silence, high definition, ultra-high definition. In the frame, the dark leather interior of a Porsche seats is visible. The camera focuses on the rearview mirror. Reflected clearly in the mirror are two entangled figures in the back seat. The man, with disheveled black hair, his expensive tailored shirt torn open to reveal a toned chest. Cheeks flushed, eyes dazed, arms tightly wrapped around the woman's waist. It was none other than the host of the evening, Lu Heng, a woman in a bright purple velvet dress, with a deep neckline and a dazzling crystal necklace, buried her face in Lu Heng's neck, greedily biting and sucking, while one hand recklessly slipped under the open hem of his shirt. This was none other than the birthday girl of the evening. By way, the footage is so high definition it's almost obscene. Every detail is rendered with crystal clarity. Lu Heng's intoxicated breathing seems to pierce through the screen, and even the prominent blue veins on Bai Wei's neck from excitement are clearly visible. The suffocating, nauseating aura of lust filling the cramped carriage seems to waft through the screen, spreading throughout the opulent banquet hall. Time stood utterly frozen at this moment. All the lively conversations, all the flattery and sycophancy, all the elegant figures, everything seemed to have hit the pause button. Hundreds of gazes, like hundreds of icy searchlights, were uniformly fixed on the enormous, endlessly looping, silent yet more explosive than thunder footage. Dead silence. Absolute, suffocating dead silence. Then, like the cracking of ice, with a boom, a massive shock wave erupted. Oh my God! Is that Director Lu Bai Wei? They're in the car. Oh my God! This is so scandalous. Didn't Director Lu get married? His wife, is she Shen Xiai, the technical director of Mingguang? Damn, the company's about to be acquired. And he made us skip work to celebrate his mistress's birthday just to have car sex in the parking lot. Ugh, that's fucking disgusting. Take a picture. Quick, take a picture. This is the scandal of the century. Shock, disdain, disgust, schadenfreude, disbelief. A tsunami of emotions swept through the banquet hall. The flashes from phone cameras instantly lit up the room like a continuous blaze, while the sound of shutters clicking rose and fell like countless venomous insects gnawing at something. The color drained from Lu Heng's face the moment the image lit up the screen, leaving him as pale as a sheet of cheap rice paper. His beautiful eyes widened to their limits, his pupils contracting violently from sheer terror and humiliation, reflecting nothing but his own debauched image on the screen. It felt as if all the blood in his body rushed to his head in an instant, only to freeze solid the next second. His entire body trembled uncontrollably, like a leaf caught in a raging storm. No. No. It's not real, it's fake, this is fake. He suddenly let out a shrill, distorted scream like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Flailing his arms wildly as if trying to block the enormous screen, to shield himself from the disdainful, mocking gazes around him. Turn it off now, this is a setup, it's Shen Xiai, it must be that bastard Shen Xi's doing, turn it off. He lunged hysterically toward the nearest screen control panel, his fingers wildly pressing and jabbing at it like a madman. Standing beside him, Bai Wei's face, which had been filled with smugness and indulgence, froze the moment the image appeared. Then quickly twisted into a mixture of shock, panic, and the humiliation of being publicly exposed, especially when she saw her own lustful, greedy ugliness magnified across the entire banquet hall. A surge of rage shot straight to her head. Fuck, she growled, her face turning as red as raw liver. She shoved aside Lu Heng, who was still screaming and frantically pressing buttons, and glared fiercely at the people around her holding up their phones to record. Her voice trembled with false ferocity. What are you looking at? What are you filming? Delete it all right now. Anyone who keeps filming, I'll kill you. This is AI face swapping. Someone's deliberately messing with me. Turn it off. Waiters, security, where the hell are you? Pull the power plug. As she roared, she also charged toward the control panel, roughly shoving aside anyone blocking her way. Chaos, utter chaos. amidst the vortex of screams, curses, shoving, and flashing camera lights. Lu Heng was violently pushed by Bai Wei, staggering back several steps. His dress shoe twisted, nearly causing him to fall. As he looked up, he met countless icy, disdainful gazes, eyes that regarded him like trash. Those stares, like countless red-hot steel needles, pierced straight into his heart, shattering all the dignity and pretense he had so meticulously maintained. The ultimate humiliation surged through his veins like molten lava, instantly obliterating the last shred of his rationality. Bai Wei. Lu Heng suddenly turned his head, his gaze locking onto the woman who was roughly shoving a waiter aside, trying to yank out the power cord. His eyes no longer held fear or pleading, instead, they burned with the furious flames of betrayal, abandonment, and public humiliation. Flames intense enough to incinerate everything in their path. It's you. You're the one who ruined me, you seduced me, you made me lose face in front of everyone. He shrieked, his voice hoarse like a night owl, filled with a desperate, all-consuming hatred. I gave up my company, my future, my family for you, and you pushed me. You bastard, you scum, you beast. Under the horrified stares of everyone present, Lu Heng, like a wild beast, completely enraged, lost all reason. He suddenly grabbed a heavy silver ice bucket from the nearby table used to hold chilled champagne, still containing melting ice and water. Die. With all his strength, he raised the heavy silver ice bucket high and brought it down with a brutal force onto Bai Wei's back of the head, who was turned away from him, bending down to reach for the plug. Thud. A dull, teeth-grittingly heavy sound exploded in the banquet hall, which had fallen into instant dead silence. The heavy, ice-cold edge of the silver ice bucket struck Bai Wei's unprotected back of the head with precise, unrestrained force. The tremendous impact instantly deformed the ice bucket. Bai Wei's body stiffened abruptly, all movement freezing. The ferocious expression on her face solidified, her eyes widening in disbelief as her pupils instantly dilated. She didn't even have time to let out a scream before her entire body, like a severed log, toppled stiffly and face-first onto the smooth, hard marble floor with a heavy crash. The crimson blood, like a winding little snake, quickly seeped from her thick hair, spreading across the cold floor in a horrifying stain. Clang, the deformed silver ice bucket slipped from Lu Heng's weakened hand and crashed to the ground, echoing hollowly. Time froze once again. The banquet hall, filled with hundreds of people, seemed collectively petrified. All the screams, curses, murmurs, and the sound of camera shutters vanished instantly. Only the heavy breathing remained, along with that glaring, rapidly expanding pool of bright red under the dazzling lights. Lu Heng stood frozen in place, his entire body trembling violently, his hands still poised in the downward striking motion. He looked down at the motionless woman on the floor, the blood seeping relentlessly from beneath her, then at the liquid on his hands, whether it was melted ice or blood, he couldn't tell. The fire in his once frenzied eyes extinguished in an instant, leaving behind nothing but boundless, icy fear and confusion. I. His lips quivered, producing only fragmented syllables. Murder. Murder. Finally, someone snapped out of their shock, letting out a shrill, distorted scream. Call the police quickly. Call an ambulance, quickly, call an ambulance. Hold him down, don't let him get away. A massive wave of noise erupted again, even more chaotic and panicked than before. The crowd screamed and retreated, some pulling out their phones to call the police, others trying to approach and check on Bai Wei's condition. A few quick-thinking male waiters rushed forward and firmly pinned down Lu Heng, who was still trembling violently and seemed completely petrified. The sharp wail of sirens approached from the distance, piercing the luxurious night sky above the top floor of the Imperial Hotel, and like cold steel needles, it pierced the brief jubilation of survival in the conference room at Mingguan Technologies headquarters. On the massive main screen, the chaotic scene from the Cloud Summit banquet hall was being broadcast in real time. The flashing red and blue lights of police cars projected through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the panicked faces of the crowd. Several uniformed officers pushed through the throng, heading toward Lu Heng, who was being pinned down by two waiters, limp on the ground, his eyes vacant like a dead fish. In one corner of the screen, medical personnel carefully lifted Bai Wei, unconscious and with her head crudely wrapped in blood-soaked gauze, onto a stretcher. The glaring red of her blood, under the dazzling glow of crystal chandeliers, looked especially ghastly. The entire meeting room fell into dead silence once again. This time, it was no longer the suffocating despair, but a heavy, absurd silence in the wake of a tremendous upheaval. The ecstasy on Zhao Yuan's face had not yet fully faded when it froze stiffly once more, now mingled with shock, lingering fear, and an indescribable hint of something more complex. His lips parted, but no words came out. "Chairman." My calm voice broke the silence, my gaze sweeping over Lu Heng being taken away by the police on the screen. "The sales department is leaderless and in chaos. I suggest we immediately activate the emergency protocol, appoint Chen Chuan as interim marketing director to stabilize the team and handle the aftermath. At the same time, we should issue a public statement clarifying that Lu Heng's actions were personal and unrelated to the company. And immediately terminate all his positions, cooperating fully with the police investigation. As for the Sky Dome project and our collaboration with Shenshan Group, we must move forward immediately. There can be no failure." My words were clear and logical. Cold and devoid of any personal emotion, as if the man being dragged away by the police on the screen had nothing to do with me. Zhao Yuan suddenly snapped back to reality, his eyes fixed on me with a complex mix of gratitude, shock, and even a barely perceptible trace of reverence. He nodded firmly, his voice hoarse with the relief of having survived a crisis. "Good, good, we'll do exactly as Director Shen says. Chen Chuan, I need you to go to the sales department immediately and take charge, public relations. Draft the statement now, hurry." The meeting room resumed its efficient operation, but the atmosphere was now entirely different from the earlier despair or euphoria. Now it was heavy and solemn. Everyone looked at me with unprecedented respect and a hint of caution. 3 days later. Outside the VIP intensive care unit at the city center hospital. The smell of disinfectant hung thick in the air, almost suffocating. The corridor was vast and cold, with only the monotonous beeping of machines echoing rhythmically, as if announcing the passage of life. Behind the thick isolation glass, Bai Wei lay on the hospital bed, her body covered with tubes, her head wrapped in thick bandages, revealing only a pale, swollen, and lifeless face. The green line on the bedside heart monitor rose and fell weakly and slowly, each fluctuation appearing painfully labored. The doctor removed his mask and shook his head at the few people standing outside the glass, his tone heavy and clinical. "Severe traumatic brain injury, extensive cerebral hemorrhage with severe brainstem dysfunction. Although the surgery removed some of the hematoma, the chances of brain function recovery are extremely slim. Currently, she is diagnosed as being in a persistent vegetative state. In layman's terms, she's a vegetable. Moreover, given the extent and location of the damage, the probability of regaining consciousness is virtually 0. Standing at the front was Bai Wei's father, Bai Hong, a well-preserved but now haggard middle-aged businessman with venom in his eyes. He stared fixedly at his unconscious daughter through the glass, his body trembling violently with overwhelming grief and rage. Beside him stood 2 men in black suits who looked like lawyers, their expressions grave. "Vegetative state. Vegetative state." Bai Hong muttered, then suddenly turned his head. His bloodshot eyes were like venomous daggers, glaring viciously at Lu Heng, who stood in the shadows of the corner. "It's all your fault, you jinx, you beast, you did this to my daughter, you're the one who crushed her into this state, why don't you just die?" His voice was shrill and piercing, echoing through the empty hallway, filled with bone-deep hatred. Lu Heng was dressed in plain, almost shabby clothes, his face paler than the hospital walls. In 3 days, he seemed to have aged 10 years, with sunken eyes, dark circles beneath them, and chapped, peeling lips. He stood in the shadows, slightly hunched like a withered plant drained of all moisture. Bai Hong's curses lashed at him like whips, yet he endured them numbly. His hollow gaze fixed on Bai Wei through the glass window. There were no tears in his eyes, only the ashes of utter desolation. Beside him stood a male police officer, expressionless, fulfilling his duty to monitor. Bai Hong's lawyer stepped forward, expressionlessly handing over a document, his voice icy. "Mr. Liu, this is a list of the properties under Ms. Bai Wei's name. It includes her shares in sale capital, multiple real estate properties, vehicles, deposits, and various investments. Given that Ms. Bai is currently completely incapacitated in terms of civil conduct, her legal guardian, Mr. Bai, demands that you immediately sign this property relinquishment statement and pledge to no longer approach or harass Ms. Bai or her family in any form. Otherwise, we will file an additional civil lawsuit for intentional injury, demanding that you compensate Ms. Bai for all future medical expenses, nursing costs, and emotional damages, with a preliminary estimate of no less than 80 million. The lawyer's voice wasn't loud, but it struck Liu Heng's already fragile nerves like a sledgehammer. Property relinquishment statement, 80 million in compensation. Liu Heng's body swayed violently, and his hollow eyes finally flickered with a trace of emotion, bewilderment and panic at the overwhelming reality crashing down on him. Instinctively, he glanced at the vegetative patient behind the glass window, then at the cold stack of documents in the lawyer's hand, before finally settling his gaze on Bai Hong's face, twisted with resentment and greed. He opened his mouth, his throat emitting a hoarse, sandpaper-like sound. Yang Fan Capital. My investment is in there. And what she promised me. His voice was faint, carrying a trace of desperate struggle. Your investment? Bai Hong interrupted him sharply, as if hearing the biggest joke in the world. Her fingers coated in expensive hand cream almost poking Liu Heng's nose. Do you have proof? The contract, transfer records? You think you can claim my daughter's money with just empty words? Dream on, sign it, otherwise, you'll rot in prison for the rest of your life, scum. Liu Heng took a step back under the blatant threat and insult, his spine slamming heavily against the cold wall. The immense chill seemed to pierce through his numbness, and a sense of utter despair of being drained, abandoned, and plunged into an abyss engulfed him like icy floodwaters. He stared at the pen in the lawyer's hand, at the document symbolizing complete destitution, at the woman behind the glass window, the one for whom he had sacrificed everything, only to be pushed into hell by her in the end. His body trembled like a leaf in the autumn wind. At that moment, steady footsteps echoed from the end of the corridor. The sharp, rhythmic clicks of high heels striking the polished floor tiles pierced through the oppressive atmosphere, and muffled sobs. Everyone instinctively turned to look. I walked forward with measured steps, dressed in a tailored dark gray suit skirt. Behind me followed two assistants carrying briefcases, their expressions solemn. My face showed no emotion, my gaze calm and unreadable, as if merely passing through an insignificant place. When Bai Hong saw me, the venom on his face was instantly replaced by a deliberate, ingratiating sorrow. He wiped away non-existent tears, his voice trembling with feigned grief. President Shen. President Shen, you've come, look. Look at what that cruel man has done to my daughter. I didn't pause my steps, nor did I even glance at Bai Hong. My gaze swept calmly over Bai Wei behind the isolation window, looking at her as if she were worthless trash. My eyes finally settled on Liu Heng in the corner. His reaction was far more intense than Bai Hong's. The moment he recognized me, his lifeless, hollow eyes widened abruptly, erupting with a mix of sheer terror, venom, and the desperate, frenzied light of someone clutching at their last straw. Shen Ci. Liu Heng let out a piercing, distorted scream, violently breaking free from the male officer's reflexive restraint. Like a cornered beast driven to desperation, he staggered toward me. His movements carried a reckless frenzy, his grime-stained fingers curled like hooks, reaching straight for my face. It's you killed Bai Wei. You ruined me, you were jealous of her, you deliberately released that video, you set me up, you devil, hypocrite, plagiarist. He shrieked hysterically, flecks of spit nearly hitting my face, his voice tearing apart from sheer hatred. Tianqiong, the Tianqiong system is yours. Ha ha ha, bullshit, that was Bai Wei's idea, it was you, Shen Ci, who shamelessly stole her life's work, you disgraceful thief, robber, I hope you die a horrible death. His accusations spewed out like venom, echoing through the empty hallway with a suicidal madness. Bai Hong and the lawyer froze, staring at him in shock and then at me with uncertainty. The male officer quickly stepped forward, once again pinning down the completely unhinged Lu Hang with all his strength. I stood rooted to the spot, motionless. Lu Hang's grime-covered fingers with broken nails were mere centimeters from my cheek, yet it felt as if an impassable chasm lay between us. His screams and curses, like a foul wind, brushed past my ears but failed to stir even the slightest ripple in my eyes. Only when his hysterical accusations finally paused from exhaustion, leaving behind only labored, wheezing breaths like a broken bellows, did I slowly raise my hand. I paid him no heed, didn't even spare him a glance. My gaze, calm and steady, shifted instead to Bai Hong and his lawyer. The assistant behind me immediately stepped forward, swiftly opening the briefcase he carried. A beautifully bound document, its cover emblazoned with the national emblem and the words National Intellectual Property Administration of the People's Republic of China, was retrieved. The assistant held it respectfully with both hands and presented it to me. I took the weighty document without opening it. Instead, I calmly used 2 fingers to flip to the title page, displaying the clearly printed patent name, patent number, and most crucially the patent holder's name, Shen Ci Bai Hong, the lawyer, and Lu Hang, who was still pinned to the ground, glaring at me fiercely. Black ink on white paper, irrefutable evidence. The core algorithm framework and commercial application model of the Sky Vault system. My voice was low but clearly overpowered Lu Hang's heavy breathing and the ticking of the instruments. Patent application received 3 years ago. July 15th. Authorized announcement date, 1 year ago, March 10th. Patent holder, Shen Ci. My gaze finally, for the first time, truly fell upon Lu Hang's face, twisted completely by shock, fear, and despair, as if I were looking at a mere speck of insignificant dust. As for Ms. Bai Wei, a cold, emotionless curve formed slowly at the corner of my mouth as my eyes swept over the vegetative figure behind the isolation window. My tone was as indifferent as if I were discussing the weather. In the root directory of the D drive on her encrypted computer hard drive, there's a folder named Draft Pending Revision. Inside it lies a crude, barely 500-word document titled Concept. Last modified 1.5 years ago. The content bears a high degree of inspiration from parts of the patent application I submitted 3 years ago. A legal notice will be delivered to Mr. by tomorrow. My legal team will take full responsibility for pursuing charges of attempted PLA, voyeurism and commercial espionage. Silence. Absolute silence. Only the faint, rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor remained, like the final toll of a funeral bell for a world that had completely collapsed. Bai Hong's expression, previously a mix of grief and ingratiation, froze completely, instantly replaced by overwhelming shock and terror. His eyes locked onto the patent certificate in my hand, then darted frantically toward his daughter behind the isolation window, his gaze now indescribably complex. As for Lu Hang, the madness, resentment, and accusation on his face upon clearly seeing the 2 words Shen Ci on the patent certificate twisted, dissolved, and collapsed as if doused in strong acid, in their place emerged an indescribable, ultimate bewilderment and emptiness. He seemed not to understand my words, yet each syllable seared into his soul like a red-hot brand. Plagiarism. Bai Wei. Discarded draft. 1.5 years ago. 3 years ago. Patent application. These words collided and recombined wildly in his chaotic, crumbling mind. For Bai Wei, he abandoned his family, renounced his responsibilities, betrayed the company at a critical moment, and ultimately became a laughingstock in front of everyone, accidentally turning her into a vegetative state. He sacrificed everything: reputation, marriage, freedom, future. He thought he was protecting a genius, true love, a light worth his reckless devotion. Yet, in the end, that light turned out to be nothing but a feeble, flickering flame stolen from the very person he despised most. The truth he had clung to, the belief that Shen Ci had plagiarized by Wei's work out of jealousy, was utterly shattered in this moment by the cold, hard patent certificate and the folder of discarded drafts she had never known existed. Beneath it lay a far uglier, far more repulsive truth. He thought he was a martyr, but from beginning to end, he was nothing more than a fool, deceived, manipulated, and ultimately the one who destroyed everything with his own hands. Ho! Ho! Lu Heng's throat emitted a sound like a broken bellows, his body trembling violently. His gaze completely scattered, losing all focus. He stared blankly at the vegetative patient behind the isolation window, then blankly at the patent certificate in my hand. Finally, his eyes fell lifelessly onto the cold floor. No tears. No screams. Only a silence, utter emptiness after total collapse. He was like an empty shell, instantly drained of all soul, slumping limply into the male officer's arms, utterly devoid of the strength to struggle. In those once beautiful eyes, now reduced to ashes. The last flicker of light finally extinguished. 3 months later, at the top-floor CEO office of Mingguang Technology headquarters. Beyond the vast floor-to-ceiling windows lay the most vibrant and dazzling night view of the entire city, with countless lights resembling a river of stars reflected on the ground. Inside the office, the space was bright and spacious, with sharp, modern lines, and the air carried a faint scent of cedar wood. I stood by the window, holding a glass of pure water. Gazing at my reflection on the glass, dark suit and skirt, a perfectly tied scarf, calm eyes, and a quiet sharpness born from enduring storms. Behind me, on the large desk, several documents were spread out, the top one clearly titled Final Plan for the Global Launch of the Sky Dome System and Strategic Cooperation Signing Ceremony. A soft knock sounded at the door. Come in. Assistant Chen pushed the door open, holding a folder in his hand, his expression respectful yet carrying a hint of barely concealed excitement. President Shen, everything has been handled. Lu Heng's case, intentional assault causing severe injury, has conclusive evidence. Combined with the psychiatric evaluation results ruling out complete loss of cognitive ability, the court's first instance verdict is 10 years in prison. He paused briefly before adding, as for the Bai family, after receiving the legal notice and evidence from our legal department, they voluntarily withdrew their previous demand for substantial civil compensation from Lu Heng and stated they would no longer pursue the matter. Bai Wei has been transferred to a private sanatorium in the suburbs, with the expenses covered by the Bai family. Her father seems to have completely given up. 10 years. Sanatorium. Given up. These words fell lightly, drawing the final curtain on that absurd and tragic farce. I nodded, my face expressionless. Understood. Also. Chen placed the folder in his hand on my desk. This is what you requested: the final report on the deployment of the Celestial Dome Systems Core Algorithm Module at the North American Data Center, as well as the quarterly summary of all assets under your personal name. He hesitated before adding, Director Shen, are you sure we don't need to arrange a special celebration banquet? The board members, and Director Wang especially, were hoping. Unnecessary, I interrupted, my tone flat. Proceed as planned. Tomorrow evening's internal technical celebration will proceed as scheduled. Externally, maintain a low profile. Yes. Chen said no more, respectfully stepping out. The office fell silent once again. I walked to the desk and my gaze settled on an inconspicuous silver safe at the corner. Entering the password, the door slid open silently. There were no documents inside, only a slightly yellowed sheet of paper. Covered with hastily scribbled formulas and structural diagrams, the original, raw blueprint of Skydome, born from countless sleepless nights of solitary effort. Beside it lay a tiny, defunct car monitoring device receiver, resting quietly. My fingertips brushed over the draft paper. Heavy with the weight of past and present, and a cold sensation spread along my nerves. 3 months ago, when the Skydome system, with its overwhelming data prediction capabilities and customized solutions, completely won over Wang Yu of Zhenshan Group, securing a deep, exclusive cooperation agreement that sent shockwaves through the entire industry, the stock price of Mingguang Technology began a miraculous V-shaped reversal. Today, with the debut of the Celestial Dome system at the world's top tech summit, its disruptive AI-integrated architecture and nearly terrifying real-time analysis and prediction capabilities have ignited the entire industry. The stock price of Mingguang Technology, as if riding a rocket, has soared past its historical peak. Stimulated by continuous positive news, it has effortlessly surpassed its previous tenfold market value peak and continues to climb at an astonishing rate. The vulture funds that once circled overhead have long been scorched by this dazzling brilliance, silently retracting their claws and disappearing without a trace. The faces in the boardroom that once questioned and wavered now show only absolute obedience and awe. The indicator light on the desk intercom silently flickered, emitting a soft red glow. Breaking the reverie, I pressed the speakerphone button. "Mr. Shen," the secretary's calm voice came through. Mr. Lu Heng suddenly had an emotional breakdown while being transported to the men's prison. "He's demanding to see you one last time," he said. "It's about Bai Wei. He insists on telling you in person. Important matter, about Bai Wei." I picked up the water glass and took a sip of pure water. The icy liquid slid down my throat. "Tell him," my voice through the receiver was so calm it didn't ripple. The grudge between us was settled the moment he lifted that ice bucket. "Let him serve his sentence in peace. As for Bai Wei." I paused, my gaze sweeping over the dazzling city lights outside the window, symbols of endless wealth and power. "She'll spend the rest of her life lying in that nursing home bed, quietly playing the vegetable. This ending is perfect." After saying that, I didn't wait for the secretary's response and cut off the call directly. Grudges have been settled. The night was deep. I didn't turn on the light, letting the flowing neon outside cast a hazy, dreamlike glow across the office. I walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling window and looked down upon the city below, a colossal beast crouched and breathing in endless desires and wealth. My reflection was clearly visible on the glass. The dark suit and skirt blended into the night. Only the scarf at my collar and the calm profile of my face outlined by the city lights. I lifted the cup in my hand, slowly and almost silently, toward my reflection in the glass. A cold and sharp curve appeared at the corner of my mouth. No one else could see.